Welcome to Mastering CS Candid Leader Insights, the podcast where we deep dive into the world of customer success with industry leaders. I'm Irina Cismas, the host, and today's guest is CK, the head of customer success at Augnito. CK, welcome, and thank you for accepting my invitation today. You've had quite a journey from dropping out of school at the age of 13 to support your family into leading major teams. So I want to start this discussion by asking you, how did those early challenges shape your customer success way up until today?
All right. First of all, thank you so much, Irina, for the invitation. Pretty sure I've spoken a lot about this story in multiple stages. Probably it's special because it's you posting this. Talking about my journey, right? So I had to drop out of my school to support my family. But as usual, people will always have dreams. They want to achieve something and they want to see themselves go into different personas. But I had a very small dream back then when I started off. I had a very small dream where I wanted my brothers to look up to me. I have two younger brothers. All I wanted to focus on is just ensure they look up to me when they grew up. Because I did not want them to miss anything just because we had a very bad situation at the family. That was one motivation that kept me going. And since I started off, right, every organization I worked with back then during my school days, during my college days, was most of a role where I had to face customers. Starting from my journey with a pharmacy, starting from my journey with a apparel store, starting from my journey with a retail store, offering different services, right? So everywhere it is all about facing customer, trying to ensure they're satisfied, trying to ensure they come back to us again. And it was all about that sort of roles that I played. So somewhere I felt I'm very close to facing customer and ensuring that they're happy interacting with me. And I think from the beginning, I was keen on listening to problem statements and trying to solve them, irrespective of challenges that you have, right? So I think that motivated me to get into a customer facing role. And that's how my customer success journey began. So if I have to quote a couple of examples, so these days you call repeat rate, you call NRR. So back then it was all like, okay, somebody's coming to your place. How do you ensure they come back again? How do you ensure they come back and buy your product again? Right. So for that to happen, you had to ensure that they're satisfied, they're treated well, they're happy, say, receiving your product or service, and they're happy sharing the word of mouth with the rest of their connections. So to ensure that happens, all I have to do is just focus on basics. For example, let's say somebody's coming in, treat them with a good smile, say welcome them, right? And then be polite, be humble, ensure they're taken care of well. And then you don't have to do anything, right? So it's not rocket science. You treat them well, they'll obviously come back, right? So back then, at least, we did not have the competition of multiple products offering same product at lesser price. But as we evolved, we have learned all of that as part of the journey. And I think there was one example, right? So I think I should quote this. When I was working in a pharmacy, right? So this was my second job when I was like 14, 15. So what happened is there was an elderly man who walked into the pharmacy. He was like 80 plus. I'm sure he was struggling to stand. All I did is offered him a chair. Though I did not able to find a place for him to put a chair, but I did somehow figure out a place. I asked him to sit. I gave him some water and I asked him about his whereabouts. He was quite interactive. We interacted. And then when I looked at his prescription, the prescription had about, say, 7 to 8 different medicines. And we did not have about 3 medicines in stock at all. I wanted to ensure that he does not have to go elsewhere to get the same medicines. And given that he stays, and back then we did not have e-commerce or delivery services, right? So I had to ensure somehow I get him what he needs then and there. I tried contacting my neighborhood stores. None of them had the same medicines. I called my distributors. They did not have it. And I called up some doctors who had very good connections with the local distributors. He said, there is one pharmacy which is like 15 kilometers away from this place. You can go get it. I did not have any options, right? I had to ensure that he gets what he wants. So what I did is I told him, okay, it's going to take time, but I will ensure it is reaching you. I took his address. I said, I will deliver it to you. I asked for some time. I was riding a bicycle back then. Went to that store, got these medicines, delivered it to him. And that's it, right? So that person was so happy. So the moment I went to deliver the medicines to his home, he offered me coffee, asked me if I want to have snacks. I said, it's okay. But then that's how we started building that relationship. And that person kept calling. So then the delivery as a concept started evolving in that particular store where I was working. And then I was able to build more connections, especially people who cannot come out, who cannot walk, cannot say roam around to get what they want, especially the elderly people. So I was trying to focus on ensuring that they're happy and I'm able to serve with all my ability for that group of people. So that's how I was able to see the joy that I was able to get from those small instances.
Listening to you, it feels like the CS job is an easy thing, but I know that it takes a bit more than being available, going out of your comfort zone, doing the extra mile. I know that those are the fundamentals, but it's not enough. It's clear that you started this journey for early age because you were forced to by the circumstances. So I would say that any company at this moment would be lucky to have you. So I'm curious, how did you cross paths with Augnito and how did they manage to convince you to come on board?
I think it's quite funny. I did have a few offers when I decided I have to switch. Augnito's journey started quite different, right? So they were my ex-company's customers as well. The HR head had to reach out to me, escalating a problem. So that's how we happened to talk to each other. Yeah, we did solve the problem. But then when I found out, okay, they were also looking for somebody to head their CS function, we happened to talk. And then I figured out whatever I was waiting for is Augnito, right? So how did I decide that? I did do a lot of research to understand what the company does, what sort of people there are. So major motivation for me to pick Augnito out of other companies, right, is the leadership and their vision. And I was able to somehow connect my past journey of healthcare to this company because after pharmacies and evolving to a different person, I spent some time in fintech, I spent some time in e-commerce and then HR tech. So I thought somewhere I was able to connect to my roots of me beginning my journey back when I was like 13, 14, right? So that was one personal connection that I had. On top of that, you have people who are like leaders who are trying to prove that they're adding value to society and to the world. They're trying to make a difference. And you could see that happening through their product and through their vision, especially the founder and the CFO and the COO, right? So when you start talking to such people and the sort of discussions you have, instead of being revenue-focused discussions, they turn out to be a customer-focused discussion. So that's what made me decide that I should get into a company like that. And that's how it happened.
That's awesome. Your description made me think actually on the opposite. Whenever we are leaving the company, we are not leaving the business, we are leaving basically the people. In your case, you basically went for the people that you shared the same values. And usually, if you ask me, this is what moves things forward in successful businesses, the people that are behind the business. And speaking of new roles, I know that a lot of CS folks in this round are sitting on a bench trying to land a new role. And you've been through this recruitment process. What would be your advice for the ones that are trying to get a job in as head of CS, for those senior people that are trying to get a job now? What would you advise them?
Yeah, I feel sorry for people on bench. Not that they deserve, but businesses have to make a call to ensure that they sustain their business and they're able to move forward. This is my experience, right? So what I would say is networking and building connections with your people among whosoever you meet, whichever company that you work with, gives you a long way for you to make progress in your career, right? So not just saying hi, rather trying to understand what they do, what sort of problems they have, trying to build your own case study out of those problem statements. Right. For example, I've spoken to multiple organizations trying to understand what sort of problems they have, just not in CS, but also in other functions. I'm also trying to write a blog out of all my learnings to ensure that it reaches more people. But the fact is, when you start talking to people, right, so you try to just take away those problem statements and try solving it on your own. So that will give you an understanding of what actual problems are in the real world. If not, you will be limited to what you are seeing on a paper or what companies trying to portray as a problem statement outside. So one, when you try to build connection, when you try to network with people, it should not just be fun. It should be pure business, but pure business focused on pure problem statements, right? So that's one. Second, so a lot of companies, startups, especially startups, right? So they're looking for people who can consult them, help them move that needle a little ahead from where they are today, right? And they may not be able to afford people who would want, say, big bucks in their pocket. So it's okay to consult and try and explore those small opportunities and try and help those small organizations. At the same time, you also get to learn something out of it. And also you're trying to make a few bucks out of it. Yeah, I did hire for leadership positions in past, right? Even leaders at, say, directors and VP level, they're not keen on submitting a personalized application. I don't know why, but they're not keen on creating a personalized application for themselves, but they expect their candidates to do that. But I think as leaders, I think we should start writing our own story, ensure there's a good cover letter that helps somebody who's looking at our cover letter decide whether I'm the right fit or not. Because at this moment, I don't think anybody would have time to spend going through your resume, trying to go back and look for, okay, what you did, what did you achieve, trying to understand what sort of person you are. So if you're able to jot down everything in a small cover letter and put that across as an application, I think that should help you move up your applications a little faster. And on top of it, I think very few people maintain their portfolios these days, right? So portfolio also talks about personal brand building. Not everybody would want to do it, but it's an option that everybody can explore, right? There are platforms that you can use to build your brand. There are methods that you can apply to build your brand. You don't have to say do different things. All you have to do is just stay simple, talk about problems that you're solving on day-to-day basis, talk about small achievement that you're trying to achieve over a period of time. And as and when time's right, put that across learnings to people for them to read out. And even if you see resumes these days, you will have a resume which talks about, okay, I did that, I did this, but barely people talk about how did they do that. Especially leadership, I'm talking about CXOs, they look for how did you do it, right? So they try to focus on whatever problem statement you identified and how did you solve it, not what did you achieve. So achievement, end of the goal where you have given a task when you're achieving it. Everybody will, but identifying problems and trying to find out different ways to solve that problem is very critical. I think somewhere if you're able to draft that very clearly and present it to interviewers or your folks who are trying to interview, that will give you a good amount of chance.
Speaking of ways of doing things, what's your agenda? What's your playbook, to use the CS jargon, for the first 30, 60, 90 days? How do you tackle those early days? What's the most important thing that a CS leader should do?
I think first 90 days is supposed to be a honeymoon period, right?
Yes, on the honeymoon, in the honeymoon period. Yeah, exactly.
We can't escape from working and showing some outcome. So yeah, jokes aside. So what I'm trying to do, right? So this is how I apply my strategy always. First 30 days, I don't break my head too much. All I try to do is just talk to people, especially my peers, my subordinates, understand what sort of people they are, what are they expecting out of somebody like me, what problem statement they had with somebody like me earlier. For example, if I was replaced, what different problems or what different pros and cons they were having with the earlier person who they were working with. So I try to understand those from my people. And I will also talk to people across the board, especially if it's a startup. It's very easy for me to get access to everybody in the organization. So even if you spend, say, 5-10 minutes, you get to understand different challenges or different problem statements that they have at their roles and on the upper layer. So once I have that, probably I will just try to observe. Second, I will try and focus more on product. What products is it trying to solve? What is the roadmap? What problems customers are raising? What sort of features customers are asking? So most of the time I spend in understanding how the product works and what value I can add to product using my expertise and whatever customers are saying. I go back and will influence them so that I know what customers are expecting in the market. And third, I try to understand, okay, how is our customer base? What sort of customers we have? What sort of value they are bringing in? What sort of value they are expecting from the product like this? And I also have a look at, okay, current processes. Will they need a change or will they need some enhancement or should I bring in some technology? So most of my research and say connection with people will happen in the first 30 days of my journey. And then the next 30 days is where I try to align on my quick deliverables. For example, let's say I want to bring in some change in the process. So if I'm able to do that next 30 days, which is my 60 days journey, I will quickly do it so that you don't feel like you're just observing, but you're also adding some value from day one, right? Because end of the day, everybody wants to see some outcome, right? So you will have a lot of dependency on technology in any startup or SaaS, right? SaaS businesses are run by technology. So you will identify technology upgrades. There are small ones, there are big ones. Big ones add it to your roadmap for future. Small ones bring the change then and there. Try to show that value, even if it is saving, say, 1 minute for a CSM, even if it is saving 1 minute for a sales spot, bring that change, show them that value. And I will have better clarity on expectations from my senior leadership saying, okay, what are they expecting out of this role, out of this function, and ensure that they are aligned with my values and vision. Because I'm definitely not somebody who would want to just chase numbers, but I'm somebody who would want to chase experience. So I will ensure that alignment is taken care of in the first 60 days. So then my next 30 days, which is my third month, will be more on implementing changes, reporting changes to, say, management, ensuring there's visibility across all the departments. Because as CS function, a lot of us are limited to just facing customer. But when you talk about, say, sales, when you talk about product engineering, they would not know what CS is doing exactly until you go and show them what you're doing, right? So it is important for me to bring that visibility across the leadership team and not just CS. So I will spend more time on implementation. I will spend more time on bringing that visibility. I will have multiple catch-ups and check-ins with other teams along with my team so that everybody is on the same page.
What roles do you think are crucial in a CS team to drive success? How's the perfect CS setup in your view?
This question, I think it is not that easy to answer. People simply say, okay, you have this XYZ roles and you're done. But in reality, there are like two major factors that will help you decide what sort of structure you need, right? So one, what stage of a journey you are as an organization, which is very important. Second, what sort of service or product you're trying to offer. So basis these two major factors, you will then decide what sort of team you need. For example, no matter how complex the product is, there are companies who have CSM doing A to Z, starting from, say, onboarding a customer, training them, ensuring they're taken care of during adoption, they're taking care of the renewals, they're ensuring they're taking care of community management, A to Z. At the same time, there are organizations, though they are a startup, though they have an easy product, they have somebody to take care of, say, onboarding, somebody to take care of adoption, somebody to take care of renewal, somebody to take care of community management, which means they're spending additional amount, even in the initial phase, where maybe I don't know if it is helping or not, but I'm sure I have my own examples, but it depends, right? So basis where your organization is in terms of making more revenue or handling more customers, you will get to decide what sort of team you need. But once you cross, say, that 0 to 1 mark as a business, I think it's time for organization to look at customer success as a very different function. Example, if you ask me, given where we are today, if I'm referring to Augnito or any similar startup, I would have, say, 3 layers, where one is focused purely on onboarding customers, who takes care of the first or initial few days of customer journey. And then we have CSMs who drive success, adoption, and engagement. And there is another set of people who can ensure that we explore additional opportunities from the same customer, who can focus on expansion, who can focus on community building, who can focus on bringing in more references. So I would categorize like this, right? You categorize structure into 3 pieces. One is taking care of your implementation and support. One drives adoption and engagement. Third focuses on expansion and community building.
How do you bring on board the right people? What's your recruitment strategy? What's the most important, I would say, skill that you don't want to compromise on?
All right. So strategy, when you talk about strategy, it's a very big piece to talk about. But if I have to keep it short, I always look for personalized application, because if somebody is taking out time to tell you why they suit your need, I would prioritize their applications first. Right. Second, I would focus on achievements in their previous roles, especially in a customer facing role. And I will have a mixture of, say, multiple personas in my interview panel. It is just not going to be managers or me or senior leadership. My interview panel will also be having somebody from my team, my subordinate. Even the entry-level person is involved in the interview, so that they get to exchange thoughts and are able to evaluate on different parameters, right? Because what I look for versus what our team member looks for, because they work together and all, might differ, and I want their opinion too as part of the interview. Typically, my interview process will have, say, 3 personas. One is being the team member, second is being the manager, and probably third layer, it will be me or some other senior leadership person. So we focus on 3 different skill sets, where the team member focuses on culture and working with people, how they get along and things like that. Manager focuses on all the technical skills, and I focus more on culture fit and creative, analytical and management sort of skill sets. So I look for a couple of things, right? So one, did they get into customer facing role or customer success by choice, or was it an accident? In a lot of cases, it is an accident. Now, how do you survive after that accident is very important, which means if you're trying to survive after that accident of getting into customer success, you have to do wonders. So I will look for, okay, are you somebody who will do wonders to survive with this accident, or would you explore other options? So second, how passionate you are about solving problems for customers. So if you're making somebody happy, doesn't matter if it has to be a customer. It could be Irina I'm talking to, right? So if I have to make you happy, I have to put that additional effort to make you happy. And if you're happy, if I'm feeling good about it, which means I'm trying to achieve something out of those small conversations. And I'll try and see if I'm able to find that sort of behavior with them. So third, can they go that extra mile? Are they somebody who can go that extra mile to make somebody happy? Then rest of the skills anyways are mandatory. We might use technology, we might use different people. But major things, are they passionate about customers? Are they willing to survive the accident? Are they willing to extra mile?
What KPIs do you focus on to ensure your team stays aligned and effective?
See, in customer success, though there are multiple KPIs you track, I majorly focus on NRR and LTV, because these two metrics talks about how long your customers are staying with you and are you able to make more revenue out of your existing customers. Because end of the day, when you try increasing your NRR, you'll have to go back and try fixing different problems. Could be adoption rate, could be their CSAT, could be their NPS. All of these small other metrics are connected to these two major metrics. I'm able to help my team understand why these two metrics are important. They will do everything that it takes to ensure the other KPIs are taken care of, because without achieving them, they cannot have good numbers against these two metrics.
You mentioned earlier in our discussion that it's important for you as a leader to tell the CS story internally. So I'm curious, how do you prove internally the value of the CS? Is it solely by reporting on NRR and LTV, or is it more than just those two metrics? And what's the story behind it?
It depends on who your stakeholder is, right? For example, if I'm projecting something, if I'm sharing something to the product team, I should be knowing what makes product team listen to me and what would I have to do for them to stay in that conversation. For example, if I'm able to identify some features or feedback that product team can take up and try making the product better, right? So I will try to focus on those inputs first. That could be coming from, say, sales, CSMs, or customers. If I'm able to collate such information and tell them, okay, this is what we're able to collate, and this is going to help us get the product from, say, 1 to 10 or 10 to 20. That's when I'm ensuring that they're listening to me. It is not about showcasing the value. It is about showcasing what they need through this team. Similarly, if I'm talking to sales is, of course, numbers driven. So all I have to do is, okay, with this customer, from XYZ customers, I'm getting so many case studies of testimonials that you can use as reference points to acquire new customers. Similarly, let's say I have XYZ customer. Now I start giving references to sales, saying, okay, I've got a reference from X customer, I've got a reference from Y customer. I'm just not only trying to build confidence, but I'm trying to tell them why CS is important in the business. When you talk to the founders or CEOs, you'll have to ensure that you're quantifying your financial metrics, because they are number focused. And I've seen in a lot of cases, CS leaders don't try to focus more on quantifying financial metrics. But I think there are a lot of metrics that we can use internally to showcase in such conversations, especially with CXOs, where pure number-driven decisions, pure number-driven impacts. For example, let's say you go back to CEO and tell them, today I'm handling 50 customers by one CSM. I will take that to, say, 75 or 100 in the next 3 to 6 months by doing XYZ. Okay, that's an initiative. But what is the outcome for the organization? Outcome is you're saving cost of one CSM, say, in next 6 months. So that is the quantifiable metric that you can actually showcase. So that's where you bring in value. That's when they start valuing CS as a function. I'm not saying they won't value, but they will also see a different side of CS, because I've seen companies seeing CS as a cost center, but in reality, CS is a revenue unit as well. Right, drive revenue, and we own most part of renewals. We own most part of businesses from existing customers, which is equally important as acquiring new customers.
Of course, in some cases, it might actually be cheaper, I would say, in terms of cost of acquisition.
It's general knowledge, right? People know that retaining existing customers is cost efficient compared to acquiring new one, and is also easy.
We discussed about the value that we prove internally, but what about externally? How do you identify and align value drivers from a customer's point of view?
I've been a little traditional on this front, especially when I join new organizations. What I do is I spend time with customers one-on-one, not on calls, not in meetings. I walk in, I meet them in person to understand whom I'm dealing with, What are they expecting out of the product? What are they expecting out of the company that they are trying to partner with? So I might do surveys, not paper surveys, but in-person surveys saying, okay, today you are at X. If you have to get to Y, how can I help you? So today, let's say your users are spending XYZ amount of time on performing XYZ activity. Are you happy with it? If not, okay, what is the number you have in your mind? So you should go prepared and be able to suggest that will actually align with their goals. So for that, I have to do a lot of research, go talk to a lot of people, including sales, CS, and some of our customers. So once I have all the learnings, I walk in and tell them, okay, this is my proposal. Are you aligned? Definitely, there are going to be changes, but they should see what you're trying to bring on the table. Not just product, not just service, not just adoption rate, but beyond that, how can you help somebody through your technology? Especially at the end of the day, it's all about why do somebody adopt technology? It is to save more bucks. It is to ease the sort of operation that they play. Right? So you try and align those goals and ensure that you're aligned. Once that is taken care of, you start showing them progress. So if you have to do a monthly check-in, do a monthly check-in. If you do a quarterly check-in, do a quarterly check-in. But ensure they are aligned and are able to see the progress on a frequent basis.
I know that CS is used to juggle multiple priorities and multitasking. But I want to ask you, what's your main priority until the end of the year? What's that one thing that you want to focus on that you think that will move the needle for your business?
So I'll be a little more specific to my current role here, right? I believe, at least in healthcare, there's a lot of potential from our existing customers, which means I can take up my goal as an NRR, say I can take that up by 50% in the next few months. Mm-hmm. So if I do that, I think it's a big achievement for myself. And second, since we are in health tech, our end users are doctors. And it's not easy to reach a doctor because they are busy day in and out. And even for us to get a few minutes of their time, it's very difficult. Somehow try and get access to end users, even if it's for a few seconds. I think that's one achievement that I would be feeling good about.
I have some more questions for you. I want to ask you, what's the biggest mistakes CS leaders make when trying to craft the CS strategy, and why do you think this happens?
We all talk about customer experience. We all talk about the customer being the king. But in reality, do we really treat every customer like a king, or do we really care about customer experience? Question mark. I will not answer this. Think about this question for themselves. But in reality, we know, right? So we want to do a lot of things for customers, but end of the day, we will be held back by different operations or different functions or different initiatives because of whatever different reasons, right? So we will not be able to probably deliver 100%, but while everybody is thinking about customer experience and they want to treat customers like a king, I'm not sure everybody is able to do that for whatever reasons. The way we go wrong is we try and operate in silos. If you're not able to showcase what each department wants to see from CS, okay, you fail. So it's important to understand what each function wants to see from CS, align your outcomes as per their needs, and just showcase that, because additional information, they don't need it. And I don't think it is fair enough to spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes of engineering team's time explaining how CS is doing. Focus on what is relevant to engineering team, what is relevant to product team, and just present that to them in 10 to 15 minutes, in fact, 5 minutes. Second, I think we lack understanding what customers exactly need. Back then, when I was relying on documentation, when I was relying on tickets, when I was relying on customer feedback, which is coming to us, I thought that is sufficient for me to drive the function successfully, but only to realize that the entire story is different when you go and talk to them personally. So the moment you go and talk to them personally, you will discover 100 different things that are not in ticket, that are not in feedback, that is coming to you. So we are trying to solve a problem that is not a problem. But there are problems that are bigger than the ones that you know, that you will discover only when you meet customers. So hence, my 30 days journey will be focused on talking to people and meeting customers.
I think asking the right questions and digging deeper, it's harder than we imagine. And it's also hard for, I would say, also marketers and CS people to listen, because you all have the tendency to jump in, to help, to assume a lot of things. It's harder to just sit down, listen, and ask questions.
Yes. There are cases where, for example, if I ask you, Irina, how are you doing? You will say, you're good.
Exactly.
Let's say we build a relationship and I ask you the same question. So your response could be different. You might not just say good, but you will also add up something. Say why you're doing good, or you might say you're good, but there is something else going on. That's the same with customers. Everybody is dealing with something right now. All you have to do is just try and discover different ways to get the answer out. I think we overemphasize on tools and technology, thinking they will solve 100% problems. Okay. But in reality, I think it is important for us to focus on investing in humans as well, right? So having a CSM makes a lot of difference than having technology and tools in place. Instead, we should start thinking about, okay, how do I make CSM's job easy? So that instead of, say, talking to one customer, they can talk to 10 customers using the same amount of time. So I've seen people driving QBRs. So I'm also a customer for a lot of other vendors, right? They drive QBRs just to surprise me with information that I don't need. I have to spend 30-45 minutes just looking at their slides, which is not adding any value. And they think, okay, whatever customer success tool they're using is giving them this output, and they're trying to say it is true. But in reality, it could be very different. So I don't think we are utilizing technology to its best. I think if you get rid of these small problems, I think we will do good, and probably we can build a great team together.
When we wrap up, what's your favorite book, podcast, or webinar that you'd recommend to our listeners?
I think I would recommend a book that says The 100-Year Life. It's by Andrew Scott and Linda Grattan. I think that book is not just about, say, one particular concept. It talks about the entire life in terms of different phases of life, starting from your birth to your career, to your elderly ages, to your challenges, to your whatever, right? So you get to learn everything about life through that book. I don't think I should say it's a book that will change your life, but it will give you a different perspective to life for sure.
Thank you so much, TK, for sharing your insights and experience with us today. And a big thank you to all of you who listened to this episode. I hope you found this conversation as valuable and inspiring as I did. And until next time, stay safe and keep mastering customer success.